3 of your Mimio training, where I'm going to continue talking about the tools available through your Mimio Studio software. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is this little button right down here on the bottom of my screen. On most of your screens, it should be on the top. I have moved mine to the bottom of the screen because it's easier to get to when you're at the whiteboard. I will show you how to do that later. If I click on this button, it'll go full screen, which is very nice because now I have more space on my board to write with my Mimio pen on my screen. And it also hides all of the distractors. We have all of our toolbars, all of our slides on the side, which is the main distractor in my class if I have it there. If I pop this up, it's gone, and I have the full screen to work with. I'm just going to leave it down now for this video. And we're going to continue talking about these tools on the side. So if you notice, we have this applications tool right here. This applications tool brings up a bunch of different tools that we can use. For example, we have reveal. So I can reveal my screen by clicking and holding and dragging from any of these 4 directions that I would choose. So that's kind of nice. You can also adjust the transparency either by right-clicking and going to transparent, or you can click on this this blue square in the top and you can adjust the transparency. So I don't find the transparency useful with the reveal option, but as far as the next application on the list, which is Spotlight, right now there's no transparency in this gray box. And notice we have this circle. I can adjust the size of this circle by clicking on that blue line and dragging it wider or smaller. I can also change the shape of this. If I either right click or again I can click on the blue, go to shape, I can change it to whatever I want that's on this list. The one that it defaults to happens to be circle. You can change it to rectangle if you would like. It's really up to you. So I'm going to open it enough just so you can see that. So this was the animation that I had created earlier in a previous video. So if you notice I click, I can animate. If it is not visible, I cannot click on it. So if I want to show them something, it has to be visible within this screen. Anything that is in this screen is just like this transparency wasn't even here, or like this reveal wasn't even here. So what's nice about this though is you can also change the transparency of this. So if I were to, let's make this back to a circle, I'm going to make it this big. If I were to change the transparency, let's say to 10%, because I want them to be able to kind of see what's in the background, but I want to focus on one specific thing, I can do that. Like for example, let's say I had a picture or a map of the United States and I wanted to focus on certain states. I could still have them see the map of the United States vaguely in the background, but still use my reveal circle to highlight certain states that I want to talk about at that current time. So there's all of those options. This size option, I mean, it's not very important because you can just do that with the mouse as I had showed you already. So the size one isn't really something that you need to use. I mean, if you prefer using that versus clicking on the blue part of the circle and dragging, that's fine. It's up to you. The next option in our applications is text tools. So let's say I have some font up here and I don't have my keyboard with me. I'm at the screen, all I have is the pen in my hand. I can use my text tools, which should bring up an on-screen keyboard. Sometimes it takes a little bit for this to pop up, so give it a second. This time it popped up right away for me, which was very nice. Now if I click anywhere I want to type some text in, I can use this as a fully functional keyboard. Like for example, this is very large font. So let me change that font real quick, down a little bit smaller. Now let's say I do all of my typing and I decided that I don't like what I typed or I made a mistake and I want to undo it. I can either hit the backspace button as we always do on our calculator or on our keyboard, excuse me, or I can still do the Control Z option, which was, if you remember from a previous video, that was our undo button. Or we can even hit the undo button on the bottom of the screen. So either way, you can still use these buttons on the bottom of the screen. I don't want any text on this screen right now, so I'm just going to delete it altogether. And I'm going to close off my keyboard, and I actually in my classroom never use the keyboard because of this one tool. So let's say I wanted to write something on the screen. However big I want to write it, I can just write it straight on the screen. So let's say I want to write Geo for short for Earth. Let's talk about the Earth, Geo. If I have that on the screen and I use my pen and I can fully select that, I can right click on that using either my pen or a mouse from the keyboard, and it has this recognize text option, which is very nice. If I recognize my text, it converts it into a text box that I can actually edit, which is amazing, especially if you're into making guided notes. You have a whole bunch of handwritten notes. Well, your Mimio software can recognize that now for you and convert it into text. So that's very convenient. This is also larger than any of the sizes available through here. So if, let's say for example, I want it to be an extra large size, when it recognizes your text, it doesn't change the size, it leaves it that big. So this is quite significantly bigger than the largest font option size through the actual text tool. So I can make things as large as I want them to be as far as the text goes. So that is very convenient. The next tool that we have on here other than text tools would be Class Manager, Control, Quick Collaborate, and Quick Vote. These all are something that are very useful when it comes to having external hardware along with your Mimio. Now by external hardware I mean, for example, Quick Vote, you need the Mimio Vote. I know some of our schools have the Turning Point, which is a voting program for PowerPoint that does not work with the Mimio. You have to have the Mimio Vote. Now I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty sure most of the schools have this hardware. I know the high school does not though. So I'm just going to click on it quick so you can see what it looks like. You can choose your class from a drop-down box that you have previously made. I'm not going to get into this because I haven't played around with it because I don't have this hardware. So if you want to get more information about the Mimio Vote, if you go to your Start menu on your computer and click on All Programs, there's a folder on every single one of your computers called Technology Instructions. Under there, you can find information about how to work with this on your Mimio software. So they have that information on there. They sent an email out a little while ago about that. So make sure you take a look at that. It's called 5 Steps to Connecting Mimio Vote. And there's some video links that you can go to and look at other videos of people showing you how to do that. Next on our applications list though is the recorder. This is a on-screen recording software that comes directly with your Mimio. So for example, if you want to do an instructional video using your Mimio or teaching people how to use anything on the computer, this will video record your screen and capture your voice. This is actually how I'm making the video right now that you are watching. If I were to click this recorder button, the video would pause and I would pretty much have to start where I left off when I re-record, and I need to make sure I save before I do so, or I would have to start over. Our next tool is called View. View, you need also an external camera that is connected to your Mimio software. I'll click on it so you can see, but whatever is connected to that camera should pop up on this screen, but I don't have any cameras connected to my Mimio. I do have a laptop with a camera on it, and I do have a document camera that is also plugged in, but those for some reason aren't recognized as something that can be viewed through the Mimio. Under More Tools, we have an on-screen calculator. We also have Magnify and Web Browser. Now, Web Browser is just a shortcut to opening up Internet Explorer. It will literally be the same thing as you going and opening Internet Explorer up on your computer. It doesn't even open in Mimio. It opens its separate web browser. Now, Magnify is a tool that I absolutely loathe. This tool, notice my screen right now where the Magnify is black. That black part should actually be a magnifying glass, which right now isn't working, so I'm having a hard time seeing where I'm clicking. This is why I don't particularly like this very much. So it's hard to figure out what I need to do, but typically what you'll see on that black screen that you can't really see right now on mine is it'll be zoomed in whatever percentage I have it at. Right now it's at 100%, so it wouldn't zoom, but if I magnified it up to 200%, it would zoom in. Now you're probably wondering, how am I clicking on all this stuff? I'm just kind of guessing where those are all at, but when you're zooming in, if you want to stop zooming in, you see this little magnifying glass that's right here that I'm kind of covering up. I need to click on that, and then it will bring up these more options, and then I can either click zoom in, zoom out, or I can click the X in the corner, and I missed it. I can click the X in the corner, and it will close it out. So that's gone. I couldn't show you the zoom because it wasn't working properly that particular time. Let's see if I can open it again, and maybe it'll come up. Nope, it's not working right now for my computer. It does work when it wants to, I just don't use it. The next tool on our bar is the gallery browser. This has tons of preloaded resources for you to use, a lot of them. For example, right here under the gallery on the bottom, we have images. There's also all these folders you can look through. There's art, under all different kinds of different categories. If you're looking at photographs, they'd be under images. Or if you just want to look at everything all at once, I can just click on images and it will show you everything all at once if you just want to browse down through it, all the different images that you can just copy over. Now let's say I want to add, since we're talking about geo and the earth, we could talk about geometry with circles, and I can just click and drag them over. Realistically, I would just use my tools and make my own circle, so I'm not really going to use that per se, but there's all different kinds of options on here that are extremely useful. Earth, what more geo than Earth? I can drag Earth over, and now I have Earth on my slide. And it's a very clear and crisp picture. So I can make that larger, it's pretty crisp. But I'm going to make a new slide for my next demonstration that's in the gallery browser, which is called templates. So I'm going to minimize my images. I'm going to open up my templates. Templates are very useful. For example, there's tons of preloaded things like a 5-column animal groups. Yes. What is my objective? Well, I don't know. So I'm going to close the browser out for now, the gallery browser. I'm going to make this full screen so we can see it. Now, let's drag this down. What's this question mark mean? I'm going to click and drag. Oh, that's my objective. Students will identify fish, amphibians, crustaceans, reptiles, and so on. They have the whole objective there. Now you can move that back up wherever you want to move it. And kids can come up, use your pen, they can click and hold on a cardinal, and a cardinal doesn't fit into any of these categories, so he should probably stay down here. Fish, all different kinds of things. We have crustaceans. If you want to check your answers, you can click on here and drag it over. That's one of the preloaded resources. So once it's dragged over, they can now see that, oh, I can recorrect everything that I've mistaken, and they can learn from their mistakes that way. It's a very useful tool. Some of it's more animated too. Like for example, some will have a check my answers button instead of drag this over, and when you check your answers, it'll say whether it's correct or wrong. There's tons of different options that you can do here. So browse around that gallery browser. There's lots of stuff for all different age groups. I've used a few things on here myself. If you're into a biology class and you want to do a dissection lab, I think there's an owl pellet lab on here. Let's see if I can find that for you so you can just see it. I'm not seeing it, but I'm pretty sure I saw one on here. So just keep looking. There's tons of stuff to play around with on here. So that's a very useful thing. Notice we also have graphs on here, like our axes, our X and Y. We also have the three-dimensional X, Y, Z axes. Wow, axes. Let's pull up an XY axis and see what it looks like. Notice you can't see it because I have this template in front of it. So I can either select all and delete everything, but notice my template's not gone. The only way I can make that go away is either delete the slide or just open up a new slide. I'm going to delete that slide and make a new one at the same time. So let's see what my large X and Y axis looks like. And there we have it. Notice it's already locked and you can't unlock it. It's just permanently stuck on the background. There's all different kinds of things you can use this for. We also have three-dimensional. We have writing paper. Undo that and let's see what the writing paper letters look like. So if you're working on your letters, they can trace these for start, and then you can open up after they've been practicing that. You can open up the blank one and they could try it on their own. There's a lot of different things you can do. Play around with it, see how it is, try it out. And the last one on here is multimedia. This might be where that dissection lab is. So let's see if that pellet lab is on here. So I'm going to scroll down. I feel like it is. I know it's on here. I'm looking out for my biology teachers. Owl pellet dissection. There we go. And we can pull it up. We can make it fit the whole screen, which I'm going to do right now. And we have that blue line around it, so I'm going to lock it in place. It is now stuck there. We're going to go full screen on this. Close out my gallery. Now we have our directions. And it says how to dissect your virtual pellet. We have our next button. And it teaches us how to dissect this eggs. Will take us back home. We have pellet information, and we actually have the dissection itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our mouse and we're going to start dissecting this. We're going to start taking the pellet apart, and we can dissect it. We can pull out a bone. And I don't know if you heard that. I believe it said what kind of bone it was. I'm not sure if it did or not. Sorry, biology teachers. I do not know what bone this is. And then we can place it into the skeleton and piece this back together. And then after it's pieced back together, oh yeah, it does say the actual bone. So I did hear it that time. But once it's all pieced back together, this will animate and come back to life. I'm not going to spend the next hour putting all these pieces back in just so you can see it. So just take my word for it. But this does come back to life. I did do this whole dissection, and it's pretty cool. Play around with it. That was under Gallery Browser, and that particular owl dissection was multimedia. So there's all sorts of stuff. There's tons of math stuff in here too that I like to use. There's Pythagorean theorem things. We have spinners, like if you're going to play a game. Star pop. Every once in a while I'll put a star pop or just a bubble on the screen. And all it does is I can make it whatever size I want, but I'll lock it into place. And then I'll just pop it. It goes away. It's just a pop. So that's the gallery browser. Looking at our next options under the tool, you'll notice it's interactive, and this particular one is right-click. This is our mouse, so for interactive mode is what we're using right now because we're interacting with the Mimio. This is our interactive mode. Down here, notice this is our mouse, so that means I'm using my mouse, obviously, but if I use screen annotation, let's say I have this website up that we just pulled up in previous slides with George Washington, and I want to screen annotate this entire screen and just write on this screen. If I do a screen annotation, it takes a picture of the screen, and I can write all over this screen wherever I want to. So that's kind of nifty to be able to do that. To get out of the screen annotation, you can just click on this mouse button, and it will take you back out, and we can go back to our Mimio slide. And that does it for the tools on this side. There's a couple more things I'm going to talk about before we finish up this particular video. And it's more things under the right-click option. So let's right-click on the screen. Notice there's a grid. If I click on grid, I can make a grid. Let's change the spacing to 5 just to show you what it is. Notice it says display grid on screen. If I select that, notice we'll pull a grid up on the screen. And changing my spacing on that grid, let's say we change it to 10. The grid gets wider. This grid is not movable, but I find it very useful if I'm just drawing my own graphs or anything like that. If I'm using a line Let's make an X and Y axis, or whatever you might use your grids for in your class. And let's make some line segments for marking my coordinates. Now I'm going to put one off. Oh, that's off, so I'm going to select it with my selector and either delete it, or I'm just going to move it up so it's not off of the line. Either way, we'll get our right what we want. Now what's nice is now that I have everything marked off and I know all of my spots are spaced perfectly, I can either leave the grid, which is helpful for graphing, or if I'm just using it as a visual, I don't have to have the grid on there at all. I can just right click again, go to the grid and not display the grid, and I still have my graph perfectly drawn, coordinates perfectly spaced out, and we're good to go. Now that pretty much does it for all of our tools that we are going to be using. And stay tuned, next we're going to get into some more information about some of our other options up through our menus.